Did you know there's a strategy so small can begin to use it today? Last episode, we talked about procrastination, which is anything but a small challenge, shall we say. And today we're going to talk about the technique known as Kaizen, which is an amazing way to begin to make change really, really quickly. Kaizen comes from the Japanese word. I'll give the backstory in a little bit later of small, very small steps to improve, and also very small moments to inspire, to make change for the better, but primarily to make change. Interestingly enough, as I was walking from my house out to my studio today, 18 steps to be exact, it struck me that procrastination, which we went into some detail before, along with all the other things, I actually look at procrastination now as a gift. Procrastination is a gift in that it allows me or introduces me to thinking about something in more than just one way. Usually with procrastination is, I procrastinated again. Well, we looked last week at the Zen diagram of the procrastination molecule, if you will, of head, heart, and hand. And by looking at those together, and we think about, well, is it my head that's causing it? Is it my thinking? Is it how I feel? Or is it my physical ability? And when we do that, it's like, oh, usually that, for me at least, brings my thinking into a little clearer place. And I go, oh, it's actually my hand. I don't actually want to do it physically, or one of the other two. And the Kaizen approach is to pick whichever of those is the most prominent, let's say, and let's just find the smallest step or the smallest adjustment or the smallest whatever atom, if you will, that will allow us to make some progress or at least feel differently about it. That's the gift. So interesting, as I was walking out this morning and thinking about that, it got me thinking about, for example, doing these live streams. When I first thought about it, I was excited, and then I began to think about, oh, all the things I had to do, right? So I put it off. I'll work on that next week, right? And put it off maybe a couple more times, to be honest. Then I realized something, and it was as I was reviewing the Kaizen approach. And Robert Morer, who wrote one of the books, I'll show you the book a little bit later, talked about how many people move into this place due to stress, and they feel stressed, so they don't do something. And he pointed out that upstream from stress is usually fear. And as soon as I saw that, it's like, oh, what am I afraid of? So I began thinking, I applied the Kaizen and I thought, well, I'm afraid that something really, really bad is going to happen. I'm going to start babbling in a language or something, right? And that's highly unlikely that it's going to happen. There could be a technical glitch. Okay. And I have no control over that. You see where I'm going here. The small things made me realize there's really nothing to be stressed about except maybe doing it. And I know from my years teaching percussion, teaching music. In fact, I probably said this. If I said it a dozen times, I said it several hundred to students who were nervous about performing in a class or something. And I'd say, well, you know what? I understand that you're nervous and you're excited, whatever. And I said, here's the thing. If you play in the class on Monday, then you will never, ever play for the first time again. You will already have played once. So it'll be the second time. And invariably the look I would get would be, oh, in spite of all of the development and all of the practice, they hadn't sensed the fact that it was that simple. Well, I certainly didn't either at their stage. So the stress was some sort of fear. And here I am now. I think this is our third session. And I probably still have a little stress, a little fear. yet the Kaizen thing, I know that I can move back to that. Just go to the simplest place. So those elements I said, I noticed we've got uh, several people listening. I appreciate that. I'm curious if any of you would like to put in the comments what you think most people or many people procrastinate about. That would be useful for me to see that. And Manya, I'm wondering if there's, oh, you know what? I just realized I can do something here and probably do that. There we go. Good morning, Elaine. Hello, Morris. It's so good to see you. And I'm wondering if any of you um, have some ideas. Here, oh, Donald, let's see what Donald has to say here. Excellence rarely arrives with applause. It usually arrives, oh, the next right thing. You know, that Donald, that fits right in the next right thing. When we move something down to something that's right, like one small step, invariably the next one comes right up. Yeah, excellent. So Elaine shares, overwhelmed by amount of work or perceived difficulty. Oh, you say a lot there, Elaine. Amount of work is one. I'm gonna put that into two parts if it's okay with you, Elaine. Amount of work and perceived difficulty. So the Kaizen approach, let's say, for me at least, with amount of work is, and this came up for me when I had to write an article, and I could write whatever I wanted and all that kind of stuff, and I just kept putting it off. And finally, I realized, with some advice from people who knew more, including the Kaizen, I sat down and took out a legal pad where I like to actually write when I'm sketching ideas and things, and I filled a page of doodling. I set a timer for a minute, and I doodled for a minute, and got up, went back, came back a little bit later, maybe even the next day, and I doodled some more for a minute. So I had actually written. And by the way, I put at the top the title of the article. So I think it was 2 days. It might not even have been 2 days. I realized this is kind of silly to sit here and doodle. So I wrote a sentence or two about the topic, and then I doodled. And you can see where this is going. I won't belabor the point. But very quickly, I sat down and I started writing. And it wasn't perfect by any means, but I pretty much drafted out the first part of that article. And you know what was amazing is I didn't need to wait till the next day to come back and do some more. A few hours later, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go back. And now I got into a rhythm. I got into a groove. Now, is that always going to work? Maybe not. But the thing is, I started with something that I knew that I could do, which was to doodle on a page. Boy, done it a few times over the years. Now, the second part, Elaine, oh gosh, I don't see it on the thing right now. Oh, the perceived difficulty. You know, those actually fit together. For me, the writing the article was difficult, right? I've written articles before. I knew I could do it. It was difficult. But as soon as I started putting words to paper, even though they weren't finished or perfect or maybe even very good, I realized, oh, I can just keep doing this and I can go back. I can easily tear something up and throw it away, cross it out. That's why I like to use pen and paper, because I just cross things out. I use different colors. That's what works for me. And before I knew it, I was in a groove, and that works. Now, I make it maybe sound very simple, very easy, and it actually is simple. It may not always be easy, but simple sometimes will get us moving. Let's see what else. All right. Manya, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm seeing all of the comment I might have missed. Good. Thank you, Elaine. Glad for that. So, Manya, I'm curious, as you have been uh, doing this work and also studying and doing your work, what what are people like your friends and colleagues who are traveling similar road to you, what stops them? What pulls them up short? Maybe with procrastination or something like that.
Yeah, I was just gonna hop on and say so many of us, I was one of them, but now I'm slowly coming out of that loop. So I see a lot of people getting new gym memberships, especially around New Year, and they are very passionate and they go for like 2 days, 3 days, and then they give up. So I wanted to know what do you think is the reason behind, such psychology, like why they quit or why they give up, why they keep procrastinating when they know that going to the gym is going to end up making them feel good about themselves.
Yeah, though that's a fantastic challenge, and a lot of different things can be fit into that model. I would say, first of all, the key piece I think that you shared is that they've already gone a few times and then kind of lost
Yeah.
the interest, if you will. And I would, if I were talking to them, I would see if I could figure that out. Maybe it's when they go, the particular time they go, there none of the available pieces of equipment are available, or there's too many people, or there's not enough people, or it could be any of those issues, which we would say, those of us who aren't dealing with that challenge would say, oh, those are just excuses, right? But that doesn't help the person who's having the challenge. It doesn't help them at all. In fact, you've probably experienced this, Mani. I saw a smile on your face. It probably just makes them mad to be pointed out that they're making excuses. So
Yeah.
what
It's
I
also Elaine's comment that made me smile. She said some of us get hurt in the gym.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna the simple thing I'm gonna stick to the basics here is, okay, then go back to the gym at the optimal time for you, whoever that is, and just then take a magazine and go to the gym, or a textbook or something that's meaningful, and sit in one of the chairs, or go sit on one of the things with the magazine and just read the magazine for, I'm going to say, 5 minutes. Now, if the gym is packed and there's no available place, then maybe find a different time to go. But go for 5 minutes with a magazine or a book, and do that for, I don't know, a couple of days. Now I can just hear what somebody says. Well, I don't have time to do that. Well, okay, right? You see the loop that's created, but now when the person says that, they've done something, or you've suggested something, and they say, I don't have time for that. The question that may come to your mind, Manya, and
Yeah.
it's a good one, is, well, what do you have time for? Do you have a minute? Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? Do you see the loop? And hopefully what happens is the person sees the loop, and then you may be able to say, so is the issue that you don't like to be in the gym? And it might well be that the person doesn't want to say they don't like to be in the gym, but they don't. Or as Elaine had said, maybe they've had an injury in the gym. Maybe they have a traumatic thing. So maybe a gym isn't the optimal place for them uh, to go. So I want to make sure that this is not like putting a Band-Aid on something that's a gaping wound. However, the process of going to the smallest thing possible, the smallest step, or maybe the smallest thought, and working there could be useful.
Okay, so if I get it correct, what you're trying to say is maybe they could make it a low commitment, like a low friction task instead of seeing it as, taking themselves or pulling themselves out of bed to hit the gym, but to just show up, like drive your, like drive with a book, sit there, like a low commitment thing. Is that what you're trying to say? Like a
Yeah,
mindset shift, perhaps?
yeah. And you said you used a couple words which are fantastic. Friction. First of all, that's what frequently is what's going on. Most people don't say, I'm having friction about going to the gym, but they are.
Yes.
There's something that's rubbing. And and I think that if there's something rubbing, then what's rubbing? For me, I was feeling stress, and I realized, oh, if that's fear, what am I fearful of? And I realized I'm not really fearful of anything. Making a mistake. Okay, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, right? Misspeaking. I've misspoken in my life, and right. So I went through those things. Now, did that all of a sudden make me not have stress about this anymore? No, but it minimized it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think I may have lost the thread. Did I hit your question?
No, you perfectly answered it. Yeah, you explained friction so beautifully. Like, I did not imagine it in that way. I really like your train of thought.
Oh, good, good, good. Well, I think that's the thing I would invite someone to do is step to a different position and look at the situation. And you might notice, oh, the friction is being caused because the my light that I'm trying to study by isn't bright enough. And my eyes get tired really fast because I can't see the right, or the light's too bright and it's make my eyes crazy. So I need right. It could be something as simple as that, but we don't see it necessarily from the place we are. And Kaizen
Yeah.
invites us to move around because these small, tiny steps can be done from anywhere. You don't have to be at the gym. I had a client who had been told by her doctor that she should exercise. That's what the doctor said. You should exercise more. And and she said, well, what do you mean? And anyway, basically had been told to do some walking. She hated the walk, right? She didn't live in a place that was comfortable for walking. The streets were kind of steep and things like that. And and she just said, what should I do? And I said, well, I said, you leave your house, right? I happen to know she did leave her house to do things. And she goes, well, yeah, of course. I said, now, do you drive everywhere or do you walk? And she goes, oh, I walk to the car. And I said, well, how about when you're next time you're going to go someplace, add about 2 or 3 minutes and walk all the way out to the street and maybe up to your neighbor's house and back down and up your driveway and into your car. And she looked at me like I had just grown, a third eye.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, that 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 sounds ridiculous. I said, well, is that more than you normally walk to go to the car? Well, yeah. So try that and see what it's like. And she goes, and I said, you feel free to laugh while you're doing it. Like, this is absurd. I'm walking up to my neighbor's house and back to get to my car. Well, sure enough, a few days later, I got a message from her saying, I walk around the entire block now before I get in my car to go to the store. And and she realized, of course, as she was saying that this is exactly what she should be. I mean, she could be doing more. And before you know it, she was walking significantly. Um, I didn't even think of Kaizen at the time, but that actually was a Kaizen sort of. Uh,
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it also, unpacks another layer. Like Kaizen helps you make it more engaging. Like it made it more doable. Like you have fun, just come back, go there. It's like a fun task. So you trick your brain in a way. I see it
well,
that
yeah.
way.
And it's fun and it can be absurd. I mean, you can laugh. Go, this is the
Yeah.
silliest thing I ever thought. Right. For me, doodling on a page when I was supposed to be writing an article, that was like, it was actually kind of challenging to do. But when I did it, I just laughed and said, oh, some of those doodles are kind of cool. Right. I didn't just scribble. I actually was, you know, um,
Yeah.
Elaine
So
said,
what?
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just
No, no,
noticing,
no.
Elaine said, Erik, you're talking about showing up and seeing what happens. Elaine, exactly. Exactly. If you are just going to remain seated in your chair, closed in, whatever, uh, you can think these things, and that's a good place to start. But at some point, we need to get out of the chair, or we need to get out of whatever position we're in and move to another one. It could be just literally from the chair to another chair, but making some movement is important. And that's why the word steps is in the Kaizen method. Small steps. They can be mental, but they're even more powerful, I find, when they're physical in some way. Let's see. Manya, did you have something else to say? I think that
No, I actually lost my train of thought. But yeah, I recalled. So I was asking, you talked about head, hand, and heart, and you mentioned you doodled. So do you think, in a way, you involved one of those three elements, like getting your hands to move? In a way, like, would you tie those concepts, or what was going on?
Yeah. No, that's really good. So I had this article to write, and I'd already thought about the article and what I was going to say, and I was excited about what impact it could have on people, because it was an article about performance and how to perform better under pressure for musicians. And it was a topic that I had done workshops on, right? So writing an article, right, ought to have been a piece of cake, and it wasn't. At least it wasn't cake that I wanted to enjoy at that time. But now
Yeah.
doodling on the page and moving my hand. Now, this may have connected because I'm a musician. In particular, I'm a percussionist. So moving my hands is not unusual to me. So I was moving my hands on the page. And at a certain point, I'm thinking, oh, this looks kind of cool. So I started doodling. I don't know what it was. It was probably something Pythagorean or Fibonaccian, because I like those proportions. Now you're in my, now folks, by the way, you're in my head. So I'll just warn you, this is a scary place to be. Uh, but the thing is, at a certain point, I just said, this is absurd. I've got, and all these ideas started flowing because I was moving my hand on the page. I'm now, by the way, Manya, I'm only coming back to this now after you've asked this question. That
Yeah.
wasn't my consciousness at the time, but this is what this kind of Kaizen approach, or the small steps approach, can bring back. It can bring back what actually happened in that moment, so it could be repeated when that situation, if that situation comes up again.
So you did it without knowing it, but now you're telling people that, it could be a deliberate practice because that's how Kaizen works.
Yeah.
I
So,
think we all do something, and it's like it becomes easier when we unknowingly apply the Kaizen approach. It's like we want to do it, so we see it as chunks of tasks, not like as a huge mountain to climb. It's also about how you see it.
well, and I think so. And you just made me think of a background for it. I think many of us have experienced, and that is watching a child learn to walk. Now, it
Yeah.
doesn't happen necessarily in one day, but we see a child crawl, and then we see a child crawl and maybe lift themselves up by a corner of a table, or one of those playthings. I forget what they're called, that kids have. And over time, gradually, those things become walking. And
Yeah.
how has the child done that? Not by reading the book on walking and going, okay, now I can walk, right? Or going to walking class or whatever, or watching the walking video, although maybe those things have happened. It only happens when the child has taken enough steps, so to speak, and fallen down probably a bunch of times, that then they finally walk. Now I realize that's maybe super basic, but we are humans, and that's how I figured, well, it worked for me when I was a baby. Maybe it could work for me now. And we dismiss that often because it's like, oh, it needs to be more complicated. And I think the Kaizen approach is actually the opposite of complicated.
We've got some interesting comments coming in. Lisa
Oh,
says the tenacity of a toddler.
oh, I love
Morris,
that tenacity. Oh, yeah, there's the alliteration. I like that too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Morris says baby walking class.
maybe, yeah.
LMU.
I love the marketing department. Maybe that's another.
Yeah. It reminds me of those books, Eric, like Eat the Frog and all of those steps. Like they ask you to do so much to get rid of your procrastination habit. And like that, I don't think I've tried all of those things. They have never seemed to work for me personally. So,
Well, and I know the ones you're talking about, and they're written by some really wonderful people.
yeah.
For example, Eat the Frog. Okay, I get it. It's a humorous title. But what if somebody really doesn't like reptiles? Really doesn't like animals that move? That
Yeah.
has Eat
I'm
the
one
Frog.
of them. Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
like the image of, yeah.
and then eating. I mean, you can think of all kinds of blocks that now come into the issue that really were not related to the procrastination at all, but now they've come into someone's consciousness. It's like, well, I don't even want to imagine eating a frog, right? Now that might be motivating, but it may not be. Whereas, as the simpler way may be, okay, the frog is a metaphor for something challenging,
Mhm.
And what's the smallest molecule that you can, or smallest atom that you can discern of the what the issue is? For me, with the writing the article, it was making a mark on the paper with my pen,
Yeah.
or actually just putting my pen on the paper and making a dot. Well, anybody can do that, right? That's the
But
point.
we don't.
But
That
we
that is
don't.
the thing.
Exactly.
That's the solution. It's like always the simplest thing that you're avoiding, Oh, I can do that. Then do it. You'll probably cure procrastination. I think that's what you're saying. That's the lesson we have to leave with, since we're approaching the end of this session.
Yeah.
So quickly, what's one thing, you would want us to leave with?
Well, I would say first, I know that, and I used the word cure last week. I'm going to go with my what came through to me this morning, and that is let's dance. I invite you to dance with it. Now, if dance isn't the word that rings your bell, then something other than fight. I really prefer something that's collaborative, because procrastination is telling you something. It's telling you that one of those three things, your thinking, your feeling, or your physical being, are not in alignment, and chances are it's going to be challenging to do any of those things. So I would say, when there's something, and start with something simple, like, I don't want to do the dishes. Okay, what's the, what might be the issue? I don't want to get my hands wet. I don't want to stand up. I don't want to go in the kitchen, right? It could be any one of those things. So each one of those things could be, well, just go put your finger in some water, right?
Yeah.
Stand up from there where you are, and look at the door to the kitchen, right? Something like that. And uh, I would say, and I would recommend, or invite everybody listening, do that today. Do something today just to see, and to start, because there's no better time to start than right now. And this process doesn't necessarily happen in the snap of a finger. The strategy begins whenever you begin it, and chances are you do it a few times that you're going to want to continue it, because either it makes you laugh, it makes you kind of just shake your head like, what, but it gets you to do something, and that will move you toward the action that may be being blocked by one of those elements: your hands, your heart, or your head.
Wonderful.
So I'd like to just really quickly uh, share with everybody that I've really been enjoying these sessions, and lately I've been working with a number of people. I work with the Clifton Strength Profile and assessment, among other things, among other helping people take next steps. And with all the uncertainty that's going on around us these days, I've noticed in these recent sessions that people are getting a lot of valuable insights, and are taking some of these Kaizen steps based on that. So I'm just curious. I'd like to invite you, if you feel that what we're talking about here is useful, and you know someone who may benefit from it, feel free to have them get in contact with me, and they could either DM me here on Facebook, or feel free to have them go to my website, ericforrester.com, and there's a way to contact me through there. I'd love to talk to them and see what's going on, and share some of these ideas, the deeper levels of some of the things we've been talking about. And that said, thank you for being here today. And as always, I'd like to sign off with my mantra, if you will: crave curiosity, anticipate awe, and weave wonder into your day today. See you next time.